So this will be my first video making comparisons between 3rd and 5th edition. What better place to start than right at the beginning, the ability scores. So the 6 ability scores we know: strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, charisma. And these 6 ability scores have been used since the beginning of Dungeons & Dragons. And they're all fairly self-explanatory. They mean the same thing in each edition. So strength is your brute force, physical power. So dexterity, your agility and fine motor skills. Constitution, your well-being and overall health. Intelligence, your ability to think, to reason, and to learn. Wisdom, your perception of things around you and your understanding of other people. Charisma, your force of personality and ability to persuade, manipulate, or in other ways influence others. And again, they're the same between 5th and 3rd. They use the same ability scores. They even generate those ability scores in exactly the same way. You take 4 6-sided dice, you roll them, you subtract the lowest number, well, you ignore the lowest number, and you add the 3 highest. You then record your score. You do this 6 times, getting 6 different scores. You then choose which of these numbers you are going to put on which ability score. Now that's the same in 3rd and 5th. Another thing that is the same between the two of them is the modifiers. These are calculated in the same way. And that is, you take your ability score that you just rolled, you divide it by 2, rounding down, and then subtract 5. And that's your modifier. So a 10 divided by 2 is 5, minus 5 is 0. 10 gives you a 0. 11 is the same, because 11 divided by 2, rounding down, is also 5, minus 5 is 0. 18 divided by 2 is 9, minus 5 gives you a modifier of 4. 20 divided by 2, 10 minus 5 gives you a modifier of plus 5. And this is how it works in both 5th and 3rd edition. So far, they're the same. But there are some key differences. In 3rd edition, your ability scores are the first thing you do. In 5th edition, if you look in the books, they have step-by-step character creation. You choose your class, your race, then you choose your class, then you roll your ability scores. In 3rd edition, your ability scores first, then your race, then your class. The reason for this difference, the reason why it's listed differently is because in 3rd edition, unlike 5th, see, 5th, it doesn't matter. Whatever your ability scores are, you've got your race, you've got your class, we're good. But in 3rd edition, depending on what your ability scores are, is what classes you are allowed to choose. In 5th edition, you choose your race and your class first, and then you roll your ability scores, put them where you want, you're good. In 3rd edition, again, I mean, you can basically choose any class you want because you can put your ability scores wherever you want them. But you have to put them in a certain place in order to get certain classes. I mean, in 5th edition, I can play a wizard with a 5 intelligence if I really wanted to. I'm not going to be very effective, but I can do it. In 3rd edition, you can't do it. It's against the rules. And so you have to choose where you're putting your ability scores. You have to be more selective in where you're putting your ability scores. And that'll be a theme in 3rd edition. You'll actually see that in 3rd edition, you actually have to consciously be choosing where to put everything. What choices you're making have extreme effect later on in the game. And they talk about character builds in 5th and 3rd edition, but from what I can tell, there's not much to build in 5th edition compared to 3rd, but we'll get into that later. Right now, just talking about ability scores. The other big difference, even though they have the same modifiers, in 3rd edition, the ability score modifier is not as powerful as it is in 5th. In 3rd edition, you have a lot more modifiers that can be applied to various things. For instance, in armor class. In 5th edition, you add your dexterity to your armor class. In 3rd edition, you also add your dexterity to your armor class. However, in 3rd edition, you can also get natural armor, you can get deflection bonuses, you can get resistance bonuses, you can get circumstantial modifiers. In 5th edition, besides your dexterity, you get armor. And if you have cover, cover also adds to it. But that's about it. On occasion, you'll get like magical armor that increases it, but that's really just another armor bonus because it's the armor you're wearing. Very rarely do you get any other things. You have dexterity, armor, magic. Those are your 3 modifiers. In 5th edition, you've got dexterity, armor, natural armor, magic, There are like 5 different types of magic. You have circumstance modifiers. I mean, besides cover, 5th edition gives you cover, but there's other modifiers. Circumstance modifiers, you can get 5 or 6 of them, depending on the circumstances, in 3rd edition. And so in 3rd edition, it's not unheard of for you to have modifiers in the 20s or even in the 30s. I think the highest I've seen, like especially for skills, I think I've seen a skill modifier as high as like 45. You're not going to get that in 5th edition. The highest modifier I can find in 3rd edition myself right now is, I believe, a plus 17. In 3rd edition, it goes way up there. Now, one last thing I want to mention, that in 3rd edition, they're not as powerful in the modifiers, but one thing that ability scores do in 3rd edition that they don't do in 5th, and this is only for intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. And this is for spellcasters, which we'll get into in more detail when we talk about spells and stuff in future videos. But in 3rd edition, your ability scores of intelligence, wisdom, and charisma grant bonus spells to spellcasters. So you have a certain number of spells you can cast based on your class, but then, depending on what your ability score is, you get extra spells. In addition to this, you are also limited to what level of spell you can cast based on your ability modifier. For instance, I believe it is, not based on your ability modifier, sorry, just based on your ability score. So you take your ability score and you subtract 10, and that's the highest spell level you can cast. So a wizard's casting ability is intelligence. If he only has a 13 intelligence, the highest level spell he can ever cast is a level 3. Regardless of what level of wizard he is, he can never cast higher than level 3. In order to cast 9th level spells in 3rd edition, you have to have a 19 intelligence as a wizard, or 19 wisdom as a cleric, and so on. In 5th edition, there's no such limits. Your ability scores do not determine how many spells you can cast. They don't give bonus spells, nor do they determine how high a level you can cast, but they do in 3rd edition. And I'm going to leave that video here. These are just some of the similarities and differences between your ability scores comparing 5th to 3rd edition.